Hey, everybody, welcome back. It is me, your host and founder of the Bryson Harmon Foundation. It's me, Keita. And this is a Becoming a Better You podcast. I'm so happy to see you guys here for episode 5. Y'all, it's been a great month. I want to just shout out to all of our supporters that support us on Facebook, support us on TikTok and YouTube. You guys are amazing. Thank you for enjoying the content. Thank you for engaging in the content. Thank you for sharing the content. Um, I have heard so much feedback about our special guest, Nicole Mixon. I want to say thank you to her. Thank you to Brianna Love. The conversations are really getting good. And I'm also learning some things about myself, even having, you know, this kind of convo going on. Okay. So we took a little break from Bryson's story. We left off with just that 48 hours, the funeral, and all of that. And then we kind of just wanted to get into some things regarding other people's story and also how do we get to all of this traumatic things. Okay. So before we get started on today's episode, which I'm going to give y'all the real rundown of the Cook County. Whew. I need y'all to do me a favor. If you're not already, I need you to go ahead and follow us right now on Facebook, on Instagram, and YouTube at the Bryson Harmon Foundation, and on TikTok. I did change the name. It is Keita with a little star, TBHF underscore podcast. That is how you will find us. Now, the reason I had to change the name is because with TikTok, you have to create other content other than just posting your podcast if you want to, kind of become popular on TikTok. So if you go on my TikTok, there are motivational videos, there are clips of the podcast, but it is also some funny stuff and me just being Keita. Okay. So go ahead and follow us if you keep missing the live. And I know some people are watching the replay, but if you're missing it and you don't want to miss it, there is a notification bell on each one of these platforms that will let you know when we are live or when we post content. So that would be a help as well. And to anyone who is interested in maybe donating, or you want to be a help, or you just want to be a blessing to me, you can be a blessing at Cash App. Pretty Girls Worship. Okay. It's a true statement. Huh? So, I, we don't ask for anything here. We don't have our hand out. We're not begging for nothing. But if something is laid on your heart and you want to be a blessing, there's the Cash App. Okay. Also, if you want to be a part of the podcast, you got something you want to say. Okay. You got a topic that you want us to talk about. Maybe you're not comfortable on camera, but you want your story shared. You want to write us a letter. However it may be, you need advice, whatever it is, you can contact us at the gmail.com. I try to respond as quickly as possible. So just hit me up. And if you can't remember that, you can hit me up on the inbox of Facebook or YouTube or TikTok. Just however, if you inbox me, my response may be shorter because those things have notifications coming in all the time. Okay, so let's get started with our show. All right, so get your drinks, get your popcorn, get your chips. My regulars know how this go. Okay, because we finna get into it. We gonna get into it now. Let me also address this before I even get started. So I do understand that a lot of you all follow me on my personal page, and there may be some things going on in my personal life that you are looking for me to address. If you're coming on the podcast for that, this is not the place. I am not going to address anything. It is in the Lord's hands. And so what I am here to do is to share my baby story, help other people, and minister. And that's what we're here for. So I just wanted to put that disclaimer out because I know when things are going on another side, people tend to be drawn to your content as well because they're looking for some tea or a story about it. I have nothing. Okay. So let's go back So the funeral has happened, all of that, and I've had to literally try to heal from losing my son. Me and my kids, we moved to the suburbs, which I did tell you guys about in episode 2. Um, our relationship, me and my children's relationship, was kind of strained, not because I was not providing for them or I was not being a mom to them, but the mother that they had prior to this situation happening is not the mother that they had afterwards. Okay, this mother was brokenhearted. This mother was drinking all the time. This mother was sleepy all the time because I was depressed. Okay, so I would work, I would come home, feed them, make sure they did their homework, and then I go in the room with my drink, and it's night night until tomorrow, and we do the same thing all over again. So during the course of this time, so this is about 2017, we had went through the first year of him being gone, and that first anniversary date and that first birthday date was like the day we planned all over again. I remember going to church and not being able to really function because I felt like it was that day. Like it, every hour, I knew exactly what I was doing at that hour. What happened? Is this one? You know, so it was very traumatic for me. And at the time, I felt like, man, if he would just serve his sentence already, you know, I would be okay with that. But in this episode, you're going to find out that was not the end all to be all, nor was it the solve of anything. So at this point, once he was arrested and charged, he was locked up in Cook County Jail. Now, for anybody who is listening that is not from Chicago, Cook County is not a vacation resort. I don't even like when I lived in the city, I didn't even like driving past Cook County. It's depressing. It literally takes up like 6 blocks, okay, on 26 in California. It looks like a prison when you drive by. You can see the barbed wires. All of that is just not a great place, okay? So he was locked up, no contact, no contact. If he had to try to contact me, it could have been used against him as like trying to bully the victim, stuff like that. So during this process, the prosecutor and the state's attorney would reach out to me. They would give me updates. Okay, well, this is being prolonged or this is being rescheduled. This court date is now going to be on this court date. And after a while, when it first started, I would go to all the court dates. And then after a while, they were just like, hey, nothing's going to happen here. They're just going to call our name and we're going to tell them we're pushing it back for discovery, which meant they were still getting their case together. And so she stopped me from coming for a while, but they would reach out to me and let me know, hey, today, this is what the judge said. I think the last court date I remember being at before trial was the day he had to give a plea. So me and my kid's aunt, we went together, and I didn't know like other people be in the room in the courtroom. I thought it was like it is on TV. It's one person, one case. They go before the judge, but there were other cases that we had to sit through and listen to everybody's personal business. And then he put in a plea of not guilty. Of course, I was angry. Even when I say it now, I'm just kind of like, what? You know? But the judge at the time, which ended up being our judge for trial, he basically said, like, listen, I've read through this case. I've seen the evidence against you. I understand everything that's going on with this case. If you make me go to trial, I'm going to try to throw the book at you. Like basically telling him, look, we know you did it. You know you did it. The mom knows you did it. All the evidence says it's you. If you did this, just say guilty. Don't make us waste taxpayers' money and doing trial. Don't take the mom through all of that. But he continued with his not guilty plea, which then took us 2 years to get to trial. So it was 2018 in September. And for the point of this story, I'm not going to get deep into it, but at the time, I was in a relationship, in a new relationship, and had just become engaged. So that was September of 2018. Now, that's for the point of this story because you need to know who was with me. So we got a call from the state's attorney basically letting us know, hey, we're getting ready to go to trial. Had to get the days off of work. It was right after my birthday, so I was anxious. I was having so many emotions. I started having nightmares again because even though you are grieving this 2 years, I haven't had to see him. I haven't had to be around anyone who knew him besides like my family. So in my mind, I'm like, what if he try to unalive me? Like what if he jumps at me? First of all, I think I watch way too much court TV, but it was just like the fear of the unknown. What if they let him go? What if somehow the jury doesn't see it as what they're saying it is and he gets off? Then what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my safety? What does that mean in regards to my son? Like, did my son mean nothing to anybody but me? And so they were basically like prepping us, telling me who I could bring and letting me know where to meet them. So for this 4 days, it was me, my mom, my fiance at the time, and my best friend, Robin. We take a trip down to Cook County and they put us in this room. First of all, no matter what you're going down to Cook County for, you're going to feel like a criminal. You could be there to testify. You can be there to sue somebody. You could probably just be there regarding tickets. The whole process of getting into that building is if that's not the culture that you're accustomed to. So we got patted down, couldn't have your certain stuff on you, you had to take your jewelry off, all of this. And once we get through the metal detectors, we had to go to a room over to your left, which was like the victim witness room. So there were other families there who were also going through the trial process for their loved ones who had been unalived or sexually assaulted, whatever the case may be. So what we thought was going to be a quick process, because we came in like, okay, well, we know the story. The jury going to hear the story. It's going to be case closed. That was not the experience that I got. So they gave us a rundown of everything that was going to happen. I was the first person who had to testify, and me and the state's attorney had meetings prior where she was just kind of like going over like how the defense attorney might treat me, just so I don't get up there and be emotional, because sometimes that's frowned upon, and the judge was a no tolerance judge. And so she let me know, like, hey, you can't come in here until they call your name. Once they call your name, we'll ask the judge if you are allowed to sit in the, I guess, like where like the audience sits at. And so my stomach is rumbling, y'all. I'm nervous. I don't know what to expect. Again, I have not seen this man in 2 years. And I'm just a ball of fear. It was like somebody had just, I don't know, like, you ever drink so much water that you're just so full you feel like you're about to bust? Like that's the feeling that I felt. And so they walk us through. We go upstairs. I had to sit in the hallway. At this time, I did see some of his family members that were there in support of him. And we all just kind of kept our distance. As I said, it was respect given on both sides from the day we left that police station. They did not come to the funeral, besides Bryson's godfather, but I understood that too. So there was no issue between me and them. I think it was just a respect thing. So finally they called me in. They let my mom, my fiance, and my sister-in-law, my sister, my friend, sit in the audience part, and then they call my name. I go in there, and I'm not even really paying attention to who I'm walking by. I just see people in suits and shirt and ties and all of that, and I'm keeping my face for it. I see a jury. I sit in the box. You know, they do the raise your right hand. And the first question the state's attorney asked me was to provide my name. I did that. And then she says, asks me questions like, who is Brandon, basically, or who was the baby's father. So I say his name. And then she says, do you see him in the courtroom? And I'm looking, the judge is looking at me. At the time, my mom and my fiance, he was my fiance then, he's my husband now, was looking at me like don't freak out, like don't punk out, come on. And it wasn't that. It was that I really did not recognize this man. They afterwards they told me I had literally walked right past him. Didn't even recognize him. So the judge is like, he asked me, "Are you okay?" I say yes. He says, "Well, let's." He said, "Are you scared?" I said, "No." He said, "Okay." So he looks at the defendant and he says, "Can you sit up, please, and take your glasses off?" When I saw who moved, I was like, I don't know him. Like in my mind, I was saying, I don't know him. And I'm sure that jail does some changes to you or whatever. But the thoughts that I had in my head as to what emotions were going to be processed when I saw him, no, nothing romantic, but just he had become like the boogeyman to me. And so to see him and then realize that he wasn't intimidating, anything like that, I was able to identify him. They asked me a few questions, obviously, what happened that day. So did the defense attorney, and then my time was done. The judge allowed me to sit in the audience. And so I was there for the paramedics' testimony, who testified that he received the call. He showed up to the house, and Brandon was sitting on the porch with the baby in his hands, wrapped in a blanket. And while he was walking towards him, Brandon was walking towards the paramedics. So they were kind of walking towards each other. And when he went to grab the baby from Brandon, he noticed that the baby was in full rigor mortis. Again, in episode 2, I explained how full rigor mortis basically means like you've been deceased for a few hours. And when they say for a baby, it would be 8 hours. So the paramedic, when he grabbed the baby, noticed that the baby was already stiff and was in full rigor mortis, and that his hand was stuck kind of like in this position, straight up. So he then called 911 to report, that he believed that it was foul play going on. And that's how the homicide detectives and all of that came out to the house. He said he did notice some bruising, and they asked him, like, how was Brandon's demeanor? And he basically said he didn't seem like he was upset or, frantic or anything like that. So hearing this, because even when you're upset with somebody, and maybe this is just me, but even though I was angry at the fact that you had done this to my child, again, there were still some feelings of, I hope, he's sorry, or I'm really hoping that he didn't mean to do it. Okay. I was trying to charge him with first degree, which means it was premeditated. He thought about it, he planned it, he knew exactly what was going to happen. Part of me wanted to believe he had just snapped. And that's what I told myself for 2 years. So to hear the portions of the story that happened when I wasn't there, um, it it brought back all of that. Why would you do this? After the paramedic, they decided to play the 911 phone call. At that time, the state's attorney's assistant who sat with us basically let me know if there's any parts of what I'm about to hear that I cannot handle, that I will need to step out, because the judge is very firm on you having emotional outbreaks, because it can, you know, swing the jury either way. They don't want the jury to be, um, they don't want them to be influenced by the mother in the audience crying. They want them to make the decision based off of facts. So they play the 911 phone call, and Brandon, he's talking to the 911 operator, and he's saying, "Yeah, my baby's not breathing." So she's asking him, did he do CPR? She's trying to explain how to do CPR. It wasn't even 2 minutes before he said, yeah, I tried that. He's not breathing. He didn't sound frantic. He didn't sound upset. He didn't sound nervous. It was just kind of like, in my mind, now, I don't know if this is how he felt, but in my mind, it sounded like he had come to terms with the fact that he was going to jail either way. Whether he had waited till I got there to get the baby, or he had just went on ahead and turned himself in. And so that's what it sounded like a surrendering phone call. That day they also uh, played the 911 phone call, and that was it. So it was uh, a testimony from the paramedics, the 911 phone call, my testimony, and that was pretty much where it went for the day. So they call us back downstairs. They let us know, come back same time tomorrow. And we did this every day. So that part of it, I'm sure I don't need to repeat. But we were even down there. My mom reminds me of, we were down there when Laquan, I think his last name was McDonald, the 15-year-old who was shot all those times in Chicago. His parents were, his family was in that room with us during that time. Now, mind you, that just could have been early on, because I don't even think the case was solved. Or wasn't any sentencing or anything for them for like another year or so. But we were surrounded by other families, so we would see their breakdowns, their emotions. Of course, the state would order pizza for everybody. They made sure we ate, because we were there for very long hours. Though I'm telling the story kind of fast, it's a long process. So the next day, we get to see the lockup video. So just like when you're watching First 48 and they show you them being interrogated, this is the video that we get to see. Now, I already processed this information before I get on this camera and talk to y'all. So if I seem like I'm not sad, it's because I've already went through the emotion before I get on here, right? Um, but you excuse me if I do have emotion in this part, because I remember when they started playing the video, the judge came down and sat like where the lawyers' tables are, so that he can watch it with everybody else. And Brandon is laying down, laying down. one hand behind his head, he just laying down, one hand on his chest, laying down. Instantly, before he even opened up his mouth, anger just rose up in me because every step of this process is telling me that you meant to do this. You were not remorseful. It again goes back to when I said in episode 2 that everything was a reminder that the last 4 years of my life was not real, and that I had feelings and had gave my body and had laid down and had went on dates and have bought gifts and went out of town with a person who was capable of such a crime, of something so heartless. It went just like the first 48, like you see on TV. They asked him questions. At first, they were very nice when they were talking. I got to see what the news clips and the newspaper articles were about. I got to see him give them all of these different scenarios that didn't make sense. And remember, in a news article, they stated he was still married and the wife had a baby prior to. But I had never heard that from him or any of us. Like, I never heard that from Bryson's godfather. Like, so that part of the story, even though I took it for what it was, I still hadn't heard it. In the interrogation room, they asked him, come on, we got to tell the mom something. Don't let us go out here. Don't you love her? Didn't you love her? Aren't you in a relationship? Isn't that your girlfriend? And he says, funny story. I'm married and my wife just had a baby 2 weeks before she had her baby. When you suffer in life with your value and low self-esteem, and you have made choices based off of how other people treat you is what you internalize as your value. In that moment, I felt this big. The mere fact that you would say, funny story. And this was the same man who would literally sniff me before he departed from my presence. This is the same man who would fight and punch walls and all of that if I ever said that I wouldn't talk to him. And he opens up with saying, funny story. I was embarrassed in the moment, though I had shared with my husband what had went on. So there were no secrets at the time he was my fiance. So there were no secrets. He came in the picture knowing that this had just happened to me a year ago, and that at this time it was 2 years ago, but he came in knowing that this had happened and that what the basis of our relationship was, what the truth ended up being, so it wasn't embarrassed as if I had lied to him before he got here. It was like being in a room with your new boo and your ex boo is trying to make a point and they talking about you like a dog. And I was embarrassed that he even had to be at court with me for something like that. I didn't have an outbreak or an emotional reaction. I just put my head down. He gave stories about how, he went outside, he smoked a cigarette, the baby was asleep, and he didn't, he came back in, the baby was on the concrete floor. And all of this time passing did not add up to what happened to the baby. Because, mind you, we all know now that the baby had been deceased for 8 hours or more. So that means the baby died the night before, but you didn't call 911 until noon the next day. The detectives, how they do, they start roughing you up, not physically, but they were cussing and they were like, "You, this is what you want me to tell this mother who lost her baby? The baby doesn't roll out of car seats. Come on, you got to do better than that." And he's just coming up with stories off the top of his head. They eventually offered him something to eat and drink, some chips or whatever. He accepted. Mind you, the first 2 days I didn't eat nothing. The first 2 weeks I didn't eat anything. And it just reiterated that I never meant anything. That baby didn't mean anything to him. People who are manipulators, people who are predatory, only your feelings in the situation is what makes it real for you. But for them, it's a game. It's a ego booster. How many women can they have? Can I make this one fall in love with me? Can I play 3 and 4 at the same time? And so it's a constant reminder to me in this moment that I really don't have any self worth. Because here I am in this situation, listening to this man who really gave me nothing but words, wasn't a real commitment, listening to him not downplay me, but downplay this child that he wanted me to have. So they continue to play that. And the judge, he didn't give any facial expressions. They then called in the medical examiner. They questioned the medical examiner pretty much about Bryson's bruises, and she went on to explain like how he had hemorrhaging in his lower abdomen, enough where it almost could fill a cup. And when someone is deceased, there shouldn't be any blood like that behind your navel area. He had hemorrhaging in his scrotum. He had bruises on his arms, on the inside of his arm, on his neck, on the back of his head. He had hemorrhaging in his skull. He had broken rib cage. Um, he had so many injuries that none of the reasons that was given as to why he was deceased made sense to her. Um, the defense was trying to go around the bush on was it abuse or not. And she knew that. And I think everybody who came to testify, the story of it was so gruesome to them that I felt like they came with the purpose of, no, I'm going to let you know that this person belongs in jail. So before she got off the stand, they asked her, like, has she ever seen any of this type of injury to a baby or anything like that, to kind of back up what the reasons he gave. Like, could it have been a fall? Could it have been anything? And as I told you in a previous episode, she basically said it would be like Bryson was in a car seat in the back of a car with no seatbelt on, and an 18-wheeler hit the baby side of the car and crushed it for him to have the amount of injuries that he had. It was very difficult for me listening to the facts of the story. What I thought would give me comfort in knowing the truth actually triggered my PTSD. And so from this moment, after she said that, that was the end of that day's court, my anxiety started back where I had kind of got it under control. My nightmares started back. A lot of people have heard me testify about CJ and how when we were going through that moment, he would wake up praying for me, or I would wake up to his hand being on me, and he would say, "Are you okay?" Because he would say I would be screaming in my sleep, crying in my sleep, saying Bryce's name in my sleep. Um, I think my mind tried to sugarcoat what exactly happened that night. And with hearing the details of his injuries, I couldn't sugarcoat it no more. There was nothing to sugarcoat. I couldn't come up with excuses, reasons, nothing. So with my PTSD and my anxiety, guilt came back. I felt guilty that a child, my child, lost their life because I made a choice to be with a man who only rubbed my ego. My drinking kept going. So I felt I had a reason to. Um, I tried to keep the details away from my kids. They wasn't home with me uh, while I was going through trial, and I think that was smart on everybody. Everybody was telling me like, I think you should send the kids with their people because we don't know what state you're gonna be in when you get home. And I would have never like hit my kids or nothing like that because I'm frustrated. But when they're already dealing with this dramatic change with their mother, you don't want to trigger more things in them by knowing too much information. Um, I'm gonna do a part two because I know it's a bit much. It's a bit much for me, so I know it's a bit much for y'all. But I gotta tell it because I want people to see you won't always be there. It's dark, it's rough, it hurts, it stings, but it's got to bring you to a point where you start doing some self evaluation, self love, self care. And instead of feeding the voids, instead of feeding the holes, you start stitching them back together. I want to do a topic on low self esteem because even to today, I still struggle with some sort of low self esteem. It might not be in the same way, but I do. Um, and we'll go through how you know if you suffer from it because imposter syndrome is part of it. Um, but I think the main thing I want you to get out of this episode is that A lot of things should have been fixed in me prior to this moment. But this moment is what God used to wake me up. I'm a better person today for it. I'm a better mother today for it. I'm a better daughter today for it. I'm a better partner today for it. Is my life squeaky clean? Do I not have triggers? Do I not have things that try to send me over the edge? I stated in the beginning of this video, I'm going through something right now in my personal life that could send me over the edge, but I have learned how to push forward, not bottle it up, deal with it, understand where I'm at, but not wallow in it. Know your worth, love yourself, love God, and you will know what love is. This doing a podcast and content creating has awakened a newfound love about myself. Where I had thought I lost being a people person when Bryson died because of my PTSD, I isolate myself. But I'm learning like your personality is dope. Like you're smart, you're wise, you're beautiful on camera, off camera. Some of y'all know I am bald under this wig, bald, long hair, makeup, no makeup, lashes, no lashes, nails, no nails. You are you. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. And doing this is like also teaching me and reconfirming in me that you can do whatever you want to do. Because it's in you. The gifting is in you. You were purposed for this. So though it's hard every week to get on here and talk emotions and talk self-care and talk about Bryson, and I don't want y'all to misconstrue, don't think because I get emotional when talking that I'm still in that space. I'm not, but I have to allow it to register with me so it can register to you. But I'm better than that. I'm better than that broken girl who allowed text messages, words, and sex to create a fantasy of a love relationship to be something sustainable. So many deep conversations I had to have later on and after this because I started unpacking. Same stuff me and Bree talked about last week. You start unpacking things like, man, okay, why do I feel like everybody rejects me? Why do I feel like people are always trying to manipulate me? Why do I feel like people are always trying to take advantage of me? Where did that root start? Where did that low self-esteem start? Who was the first person who made me feel not wanted? Why am I internalizing that? When you know who you are and you know whose you are, you can overcome anything. You can make it through anything. If you're in a dark space right now, if you're in a time in your life where you just don't know which way to go, you're not understanding how this can be God's will or God's purpose, or how is this going to put me on the right track? How is this an answer to my prayers? You don't understand it. That is the perfect moment. God is setting you up. And y'all know I don't try to be overly religious on this podcast, but it's the truth. I got to tell you the truth. It's a setup. It is a setup for you to wake up. You can't be a victim forever. You could, but you'll never fulfill purpose being a victim. You got to deal with it. You got to start having those conversations. Whether it is to say, I forgive you, even though you're not sorry, or whether it is to mend things. But you got to know your worth. Because some relationships won't mend. Some friendships won't mend. They were not for you. They were for a season, but they were not for you. Some of us need to forgive our parents. Some of us need to forgive, our uncles and aunties. Now, I'm understanding there are certain circumstances that, some of us need therapy. Therapy and Jesus. Therapy, prayer, and Jesus. Therapy, anointing oil, prayer, and Jesus. Therapy is not for crazy people. I want our community to really realize that. And I'm going to let y'all go because I'm at my time. But it's been a long time since I talked to y'all by myself. But I want our community, the Black community, the church community, to stop knocking therapy. There are some things that we can't deal with because we don't know how to name it. We don't know what it is. So we can be walking around, it's just like going to the doctor. Y'all tell everybody, when it started raining, my knees start hurting. Black people will say that for 20 years. Go to the doctor and find out you really just got arthritis. You really got gout. But you've been calling it because it's raining outside. But there's a terminology for it. And once you have the terminology for it, there's always a way to fix it. Always a way to, be better, to re-heal that leg, to get that fluid out that leg. It's always something that can help you not live in that state. Thank y'all for joining me tonight. I enjoy talking to y'all. I enjoy the love that y'all are giving me. I'm telling y'all, doing the podcast and getting it out there, it's a help to me. So I hope it's a help to somebody else. So our announcements as usual. We got my baby Jayla. Y'all know she got a publishing company, Unhappy Books Publishing. She just got another client that she's working on for a new book. Her book is on Amazon. It is called Looking in the Mirror. All you have to do is type in Looking in the Mirror on Amazon or look under Jayla Anderson Westbrook. It is there. I think it's like $15. So even if you're not a reader, just download her book, y'all. Support her, okay? And then we got my girl, Nicole Mixon with Be Inspired Creations, LLC. If you got an event, you got a baby shower, you got a wedding, you like those 3D balloons, you like decor, you like custom things for your decoration, this is the girl you need to link up with. She is in Georgia, but she does travel for business. While saying that, if you have a business, if you have a play, if you have a TV show, if you have something that you would like us to promote on our podcast, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I am here for the small creators. I am here for the small businesses. So contact me at thebracinghomeandfoundation@gmail.com and we can go over everything, have your pictures and stuff ready, and you'll be on the next episode. It was good talking to y'all today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. Please, in the comments, can you please just tell me something that you have taken from the last 5 episodes? I need y'all to comment that. I need you to like it and I need you to share it. But please leave it in the comments, something that you have learned or gained from watching the last 5 episodes. I will see y'all this time next week on Facebook and YouTube at the Bryson Holman Foundation at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Until we see each other again, be healed.